So there's a significant transition here, isn't there? Because what you're saying is you can achieve so much through teamwork, the ideas in Latham and so on. But to effect real change, you've got to go a step further.
Got to look at the process.
And that's when the process becomes very important, and understanding the process. But you can't really do that until you've got that team working in place and the sort of conditions which are conducive to the application of the lean principles you're saying.
Well, that's how we started. We thought that you can only apply this to frameworks, you can only apply this to people that are working regularly together. But what we've done over the last few years is realise that if you adopt the right principles and treat people in the right way, you can actually break down some of the traditional barriers on a traditional job and do a one-off process with the supply chain.
So some of this approach is transferable into other areas of your work.
Yes, and that's what we're doing at the moment. Is we're actually now making it a company-wide process to actually look at the program in detail with the supply chain before we set out to.
How does that work?
Well, if you've got a framework project, you probably know most of the contractors that you're going to be working with because they're people you work with regularly. So you can actually look at the whole job holistically, and you can actually ask the supply chain to come to a workshop. And they've got a lot of experience about what they've done before. You can actually develop a program.
So the main vehicle or focus is this workshop where everybody comes together.
Yes. Yeah. So that's how we got the fit-out programs down on ASDA to the speed we had, because we were working with the same people. They could bring along to the workshop all the things that were getting in their way of going quicker. We could actually ask the subcontractor's foreman, and that's the real key that we've found, is that we have to actually talk to the guy doing the job, who has the experience about how things happen really on site. We tried it with the contracts managers and found that they were agreeing to all sorts of things that they said their company could do, and then the foreman would turn up and say, who told you that we could do it that way or that quickly? It doesn't work. So we've learned to actually go and actually talk to the foreman. So we sort of refined and developed the process in the frameworks, but then realised that if you actually take the job in chunks and say at the beginning of a traditional job, you could take the 4 or 5 contractors that are going to be involved in the envelope, bring them together, overcome some of their natural reluctance to sit and talk to other subcontractors, because traditionally they've only been talked directly to the main contractor and ignored everyone else on site. But if you can actually get over those barriers, so we do that by inviting them to a hotel, have a bit of a social evening, talk about the project in its overall terms, because that's the other issue that you get on traditional jobs, is the foreman that turns up probably knows absolutely nothing about the job he's going to build. He's been given that job the Friday before he turns up on the Monday, never seen the drawings before, probably has only got half his team on day one because the rest of them are finishing off the previous job. So you bring the foreman together, have a social evening, make sure they understand exactly what we're there to build. We talk about some of the customers' concerns. So we get them understanding that they're not just there to put a ceiling up or put a steel frame up. It's more of the holistic, why are we here?
The whole project,
Why are we here? What's the customer trying to get out of this? What are we trying to achieve? What's the customer concerned about? Is it time that's most important? Is it quality? Is it lack of disruption if we're building something next to an existing facility?
So you were saying earlier on how important customer focus was in terms of how increasing customer focus and the impact that had on you as a business. Are you now trying to extend that customer focus?
Very much so.
Down the supply chain?
Yes. So once you've got people believing they're part of a team to achieve a goal rather than just turn up, put a ceiling up and go away again, we then go into, so we have that the evening of the social, we go to the next day.
And do you find that's enough to kind of get that sort of environment?
Most times. So occasionally we get the odd person that will not
doesn't want
to know. Yeah. And we've had one workshop over the years which got completely ambushed and railroaded by one individual, and in the end we actually parted company with that subcontractor halfway through the job. So the writing was on the wall that they just did not want to think in this collaborative way. But that's the only one time it happened. So normally we find that people can see the benefits, and then so on the day we actually do the workshop, we actually get the subcontractors to explain to each other what they have to do and how long they think it will take. And we literally put a blank program on the wall, the size of the wall of the room that we're in, great big grid, and each subcontractor's given a pack of post-it notes, and they actually stick the post-it notes against their activity and describe on them what they're doing. We start off on a week-by-week basis, so we have, say, a 30-week program, and we'll only be talking to the first 5 contractors at the frame, so we might be talking about the first 10 or 12 weeks. So they explain what they're doing on a week-by-week basis. So
you have the overall kind of program, but then within that, they're almost creating their own program.
Yes, and
in association with all the other
that's right.
people involved.
Yes, and there's a bit of people are a bit reluctant to be the first one to go up and stick their post-it notes on the wall, and we have to get over a little bit of that sort of cultural issues. We're working within the milestones of the project. This is not reinventing. We know we've got to build the thing in 30 weeks. We explain that to them. We know that we need to be frame complete by week whatever. Those are all the constraints, but it's about how you get there that we're looking at. So we get them all to stick their post-it notes on the wall, and literally everyone stands back and has a look. And we see the same pattern as we saw when we did the exercise on the hotel in Bridgewater, congested periods and periods when there's hardly anything going on. And we say, okay, so how can we shuffle that about? And quite often also, everyone, we say we've got 12 weeks up the frame up, and the first pass, it comes out at 15.
Yes.
Because everyone's saying they need this amount of time, and this is when they want to do it. So we actually then start refining it by saying, okay, well, what can we do to use some of this time that's not been effectively used? And we start looking at then, so what's the flow around the building? What's the sequence? Make sure everyone thinks they're going in the same direction, that we're following each other trade by trade around the building. What do you need to be ready before you can do that? And
are you kind of moving to the concept of the internal customer?
Absolutely.
So maybe each specialist is seeing the other specialists as their customers and suppliers.
Absolutely, yes. Which long time ago in construction, because everyone was directly employed, there was that sort of relationship between different trades.
Yes.
When that culture disappeared and everyone went to become a subcontractor, there is still, unfortunately, that attitude is, I don't give a damn about anyone else. I'm just here to do my job. And if I damage other people's work in the process or I delay someone else, not my problem. I only see the main contractor as the person I'm working for. Now, by having this more holistic approach and actually seeing the end customer and each other as important parties, you can get through that barrier and say, well, we all want to get our job done as easily, as quickly as possible. So if we actually help each other, and so if you say something's going to be ready in a certain area, it is, then the next trade can get on. So we have this idea of the next customer, who's following you. So we do that, we refine the program, we take out the areas where work's not been perhaps as much going on as it could be. We then maybe come to a bit of a stumbling block. That's the usual process, and someone will say, one of the trades normally will say, well, I could do something differently to how I normally do it. We had an example only a few weeks ago where we were 1 week short of hitting the program we needed to hit, and we're actually doing this on the second workshop where we'd had the frame workshop. We were then doing the fitting out workshop, similar process but with the fitting out trades, and it was the carpet contractor that said, well, I need 2 weeks, but I could do it in 1. If these things happened. And the other trades then said, here's the way to unlock the problem. So they all then sat down and agreed how they could help the carpet contractor to take a week out of his program. Problem was solved then.
Okay. So this is very interesting. So this approach is stimulating innovation within the group, within the supply chain, in addressing particular problems. The problems are there for everyone to see, so it's all transparent, it's very clear, and there's this willingness to help each other in the process and to change the ways that they sometimes operate, or usually operate, in order to give over more benefits for the whole project.
That's right, and we often invite the customer to this process, not maybe the whole day and a half, because it's very difficult to get customer representatives that period of time, but maybe for the latter part of the main day, because during the whole discussion we've brought out a whole load of issues that are maybe our customer decisions that need to be made, our design problems that have been flagged up. We bring them out at this stage rather than stumbling upon them actually when you're trying to build the thing.
And if they do change their minds later on about something, then they're more aware of the implications of those changes later in the process.
For this project where we had the problem with the 1 week, the carpet contractor eventually was the key to unlocking it. Before we got there, we had a whole list of things that the customer, in this case Rolls-Royce, had to go away and give us answers to. And he knew that very early on, rather than being given those requests for information much later. We teased it out of the trades as part of the process.